Welcome to the Overcoming Adversity podcast, where it's all about transformational growth and having a resilient mindset. Today, we have on the show a guest of mine, Mr. Mark Elward. He's the founder of the Seven Pillars and also a personal coach and a business development coach. He's also here to tell us some stories about some adversities that he has faced and how he's here to help changing people's lives. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thank you, Michael. Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thank you so much for being here, man. We're just sharing some jokes behind scenes, and we have some of the similar stories and things like that. And I would love for you to just tell us a little bit about some of your business acumen, some of the things that you've done to get you to the level of success where you're at now today, man.
Yeah, thank you. I basically 35 years in the technical staffing space as an owner operator. I spent the first 5 years or so under the guidance of a mentor, and we built a company together. He funded it, gave me a small piece of the action, and I did all the work. So I learned everything there is to learn about starting a technical consulting firm from scratch, and then going through the due diligence process of selling it. And then when he sold the business, I stayed on contract for a year in the transition. And within a couple of months of that transition, I knew I wanted to do my own thing. I didn't want to work for anybody else. People have told me over the years, if I was in the military, I would have done a lot of push-ups. I don't take orders very well. So, I went into business with a good friend of mine, and we built a very successful business. And then I guess from an adversity standpoint, about 10 years into that, I started going through a pretty nasty divorce, and she started bothering my business and my clients, and it became pretty ugly. And so we were kind of forced to sell the business, and
Wow.
that's a long story with lots of funny, interesting, calamitous events that we don't have time for in a 30-minute show, but poke away at that however you want. I got my sense of humor. I got a great relationship with my three kids, and I'm in the consulting space now, because when I brought my children through their young adult years, and I coached them to get jobs, and then I coached them to start their own companies, all three of them came back and said, "Dad, you've got information that you got to get out there to more people. Most people don't know any of this stuff. We got jobs, we got more money than we thought we were going to get, and then we started our own businesses and became profitable quick." So, and humbly speaking, I'm like, what I know, everybody knows what I know, right? And we all make that mistake, right? They don't. They don't. So I'm wrestling with how to distill all of that knowledge and experience into an online delivery platform. And it's a work in process, and it's been a lot of fun, a little bit frustrating, because I'm a brick and mortar guy. I'm a handshake, look you in the eye kind of guy, and copy and resonating and messaging online it's a different game, So content is the same, but the delivery mechanisms are a little bit tricky sometimes. You know what I'm talking about.
Exactly, 100%. I wanted to touch on something real quick here. The acquisition and selling of a company, that process could be tumultuous, where like deals could go good, deals could go bad, or when you have business partners and things like that, then there's different interests within things when it goes through that transition phase.
Hmm.
Did you ever experience any of that? When it came time to either separate yourselves from the business?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, the first time that I was in the due diligence process, it wasn't my company. I had an ownership stake, but I had no controlling interest. So I got a big fat check, and I was in the process, but I wasn't driving the due diligence. That was
Mhm.
the primary owner, my mentor. And I thought that experience would suit me well when I was ready to sell my own company, where I was the primary owner. But the divorce, and I was the momentum guy. And when I lost momentum, the company lost momentum. I
Mm.
was the motivational trainer, thought leadership guy. And so it was challenging. And we did some pretty good due diligence on the financials of the acquirer, but one of my partners was so interested in getting out because of the nonsense, which I don't blame him for, that we probably didn't get the deal that we should have gotten. The two things that I would say that we did wrong were, we took an earnout. We didn't take the money and run.
Mhm.
And when you take an earnout, you're giving control a piece of the pie to other people. And
Mm,
that's a long story there too. But the other thing we didn't do is we didn't do the due diligence that we should have on the culture of the company that was acquiring us. So it's not just about the money. It's like, do we fit in personality wise? Do we have similar professional goals? You know, is it an autocratic? Is it a hierarchical? I mean, what is the culture? And do we just plug into it and just hope it works? That's kind of what we did, and that was a big mistake. We
wow.
had we had two offices, one in Orlando and one in Boston, where I'm originally from. And what we discovered pretty quickly after the acquisition, all the paperwork was signed, is they didn't want the Orlando office. They wanted the
Mm,
Boston office to support one of their major banking clients, and they didn't tell us that. So they got in the way of my ability to get to my earnout, and it was not pleasant. I mean, we took a nice chunk of change and put a lot of nonsense behind us. So I think generally speaking, it worked out pretty well. But I would advise anybody that's going to sell their company, don't take an earnout and don't lose sight of the culture of the acquiring company, because if you don't fit in, you're not going to meet the goals that that you want to meet. So again, a story that's got a lot more sub stories to it. So poke away if you want.
no, I had a friend of mine that wanted to introduce me to purchasing another company, and I was going through all of these different documents and researching companies, the investors, everybody that was involved in it, and doing what you kind of said you guys should have done. I realized that this was not a business that I even aligned with or fit with,
Yep.
even being a part of. In addition to that, though, I remember purchasing a franchise, and I did buy this franchise and buy into the franchise. And when you have to do your due diligence and all these different types of things, you learn enough for them to get through the sale. But once you get on the inside, you see different aspects and different things within that business. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
wanted to jump into this real fast though. So you grew up in Boston,
Yep.
and then you got into business. I wanted you to talk a little bit about what was it like growing up for you, and then what made you gain that love or that feel to get into the business side of things.
Yeah, I was pretty, I was a fairly typical teenager, young 20s guy, lost, not sure what I wanted to do. Um, I ended up going to college. I didn't want to go to college, but I was in a generation, in a culture, in a family that was, if you can and you have the means,
Mhm.
college is what you do after high school. And I've been teaching people for years now that college has now become a waste of time, and I've felt that way for a long time. And I could argue both sides of that, but it's so much money and so little wisdom coming out of college. It's, knowledge is easy. Knowledge
Right.
is everywhere. Just go online. You can find stuff out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But wisdom and how to live and how to handle life, they don't teach you that in school. So
No.
anyway, I ended up, my father suggested, because I didn't want to go to an Ivy League school, because I grew up around Ivy League schools and I thought they were all snobby and, pretentious. And I said, I got to get the hell out of here. And so I looked at places like Notre Dame and Stanford and Duke, because I was a pretty good student. And I ended up going to Notre Dame, which was wonderful. I wasn't ready for college. I didn't apply myself. But I met a lot of really nice people, really smart people from all over the world. And I was exposed to a lot of interesting stuff. It's a great place to go to school. And then I got out of college and I went to work for an insurance company in Chicago. And within a couple of years, I was like, not me, not me. And that's when I started to discover I'm not really interested in taking direction from someone who doesn't appear even as competent as I am. So happenstance, I went back to Boston, and I got my girlfriend pregnant when I was 26, and my immediate response to that was step up and be a man. And so I went looking for something that I could sink my teeth in with some purpose. And I happened on a conversation between my mother's best friend and her new husband, this Australian guy. They were at the condo, and over a glass of wine, I said, what do you do? Because I'm lost, but I need something. I got to make some money, and I want to do it doing something I like. And he said, I'm a recruiter for petrochemical engineers in Saudi Arabia.
Mm.
And I'm like, okay, unpack that, please. What the hell does that mean, right? And he's like, well, the Saudi Arabian oil companies, they need these petrochemical engineers to get the oil out of the ground and processed and refined and distributed. and they don't grow on trees. And nobody wants to work in Saudi Arabia that's not
Mhm.
from Saudi Arabia. So I got to go around the world and recruit people for them with very specific advanced degrees and scientific backgrounds. And then they offer them 3-year contracts. So they're not permanent. It's just 3 years. Anybody can do 3 years. They pay them like 3 times what they would make in the United States. They give them a free house, a free car, and they pay their expenses. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I said, what, if I may, what's the fee that you take from a transaction? He said, each of those transactions nets me about $100,000. I'm like,
Wow.
holy shit. And so I got the newspaper. That's how old I am. And I went looking for recruiter positions, and I found one right across the border in New Hampshire, in Salem, New Hampshire, which is only about a 30-minute commute from where I live. And I went and interviewed, and they hired me on the spot, and they stuck me in the software engineering group. And I began recruiting software engineers in greater Boston area. And I lucked out. I had a really good mentor. And then a few years later, I was introduced to my primary mentor, the guy I worked for 5 years, and we built and sold a consulting firm for. And he asked me if I wanted to move to Florida. And of course, I'm getting all the Irish Catholic noise around out of wedlock pregnancy, and she did it on purpose. Don't do this, don't do that. I'm like, I got to get away from the noise. So I'm like, yeah, Florida sounds great. Let's get out of here, right? And so I went and took a big chance, and it turned out wonderfully. And that's kind of the foundational story.
Mhm. So, being someone that took chances, and you also mentioned something that I really like is finding a mentor.
Mm.
Can you tell me about what does it take to get into that mindset to be willing to have someone help lead you, help guide you, knowing that you're trying to get to this next level in life? Because, like you mentioned before, like you said, you're trying to figure it out. You just had a baby, and all these different things that's pulling you in different directions. What kind of
Mhm.
mindset did you create? And if you could just speak a little bit about mindset now.
Yeah, I have to give my father credit. He's been my mentor my whole life. He was my baseball coach. He was the father to the friends that I had that didn't have fathers. So he was a natural mentor. And so I'm half of what I've got to give just plain DNA, hand me down
Mhm.
genetic material. And so I've been the captain of most of my sports teams. I've been a leader pretty much my whole life. As I joked about with you earlier, part of it's just because I can't take orders very well. and what is they don't I don't suffer fools, and I say that humbly because I've certainly done many foolish things. I've been a fool myself over and over. Um, and I happened into my mentorship. I didn't go seeking a mentor. I was
Okay.
introduced to him. However, and I talk about this a lot, when I sat across the desk from him for the first time and listened to him for about 5 minutes, I thought to myself, this guy's brilliant. And
Mhm.
so I paid attention. As soon as the mentor was presented to me, I'm like, that's my mentor, right?
Mhm.
And I think most of us don't do that. I think most of us are having a cup of coffee with our mentor, and we're looking at our phones, or we're worried about something else, and we're not going, okay, I don't get this guy. This isn't my mentor. I'm not even thinking about mentorship, right? And
Mhm.
then once I identified him as my mentor in my own mind, and we work together, he's like, I'll put all of the money in. You don't have to put a dime in, but you're going to do all the work, and I'm going to tell you what the work is. And so I
Mm.
think that I recommend mentorship as being a mentor and a mentee all day long. It's the number one best way to get better at anything and to become successful as fast as you possibly can.
The
And
blueprint.
I say that without hesitation. So I was lucky, but I did pay attention, if that makes sense.
It does. So I also wanted to touch on family. You had mentioned that your kids came to you when it comes to like advice for business,
Hmm.
and then you did went through a divorce and you had to like manage that and battle through that. I know personally for myself, I've been through some of those topics and things that you just shared, and there was tons of adversities that came with that. You already looked me up a little bit, so came with just tons of issues and legal issues and things like that. But for yourself specifically, Can you tell us a little bit about some of the challenges that you faced and had to go through, either with your spouse or with your kids, and just how it entangled with business for yourself?
Yeah, it was really challenging. And at the beginning of it all, like all of us are when we first go through something, I'm naive, right? I don't, I'm scared. This is bad. This isn't good, and but she took a position of, I'm going to use every weapon that I can to hurt you. And that included my children. So that was
Mhm.
unfortunate. And nobody really understood how somebody could do something like that. But it was a 7 to 10 year process, depending on when I first served divorce papers, to a series of events over the course of 7 to 10 years where it was just fighting, and my position was, what's in the best interest of my children. And it became clear pretty quickly, the best interest of my children is to get them the hell away from their mother, which is
Mhm.
completely contrary to how anybody might think. So
Right.
it was really messed up. But I went through, I had an attorney who was supposed to be the best guy in Central Florida, and I would question that in hindsight. I should have fired him early, but I was so deep into it that I thought, if I fire this guy, I got to start over with somebody else. It's just going to cost me so much more money. But at the end of the day, I threw millions of dollars at this thing to make it go away, and it still rears its ugly head today. So it was really a challenge of separating my professional well-being from my personal well-being, but so challenging when she would
Mhm.
show up at the office and knock at the door and make faces at my secretary. I mean, it was crazy stuff. But I ended up at the end representing myself as my own attorney, and I got custody of my 3 children. So, and that just doesn't happen. Guys don't
That's
get
unheard of, man.
It's unheard of. It's
Unheard
unheard of.
of.
Yeah, and again, that is chock full of stories, Michael. That I could. Some of them would make you laugh, and some of them would make you choke. But yeah, it was constant adversity every single day. But I think that the way that I always looked at adversity, and you don't know this until something becomes adverse, right?
Right.
Coasting through childhood, great parents, great family, really tight Catholic, meals at the table at 6 o'clock every night, white picket fence kind of stuff. And I'm like, then I went off to college, and I'm like, okay, there's a whole other thing going on in the world. A lot of people don't have what I have, right? Most
Mhm.
people, it seems, don't have what I had, but they have other things, and they're missing other things. And then you kind of, well, everybody has adversity. It's like, as I said to you before, it's not a contest. People used to say, this is the craziest divorce I've ever seen. I'm like, I don't want that trophy, man. I'm not looking for that trophy. So to me, it was always a choice. And I'm sure you found this as well. I can give up, or I can, I can press forward. And I never was attracted to the giving up option. It just never was appealing to me. I'm like, no, no. Well, what does it mean to press forward? Get up every day, show up every day, just show up every day, and things will be okay. Just keep showing up. No, no, not drinking. No, not promiscuity. No, let's go back to church. Let's say some prayers. Let's do some yoga, do some meditation, get some exercise, eat some good food. It's pretty simple. It's just not easy. It's hard, you know?
So, Mark, you spoke about fear, and that seems to be a word that does not exist in your vocabulary in regards to those types of things. You look at things more optimistic, as you're going to go through the wall for this, you're going to charge at it, and you lean towards like your faith and your belief in yourself. If you can, man, can you share a little bit about how you created that mindset, that mentality, and you tie a little bit of humor to some things as I hear, man. And
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you can, man, share with our listeners that may be having some fear or some doubt in their life and things like that, based off what you've shared, and the tips and the strategy that you use for yourself to get you through situations, man.
Yeah, I think it's I wouldn't say that I don't have any fear in my life. I have it's To me, it's not about fear. It's about, okay, I'm fearful right now. I get
Mhm.
that. My body's getting that, my mind's getting that, my emotion. Okay, I'm scared. So what? Keep going, right? And I think some of that comes from playing sports. I would imagine you've got some of that from your military experience, where the military is like, just get up, man, rub some dirt on it and get up, stop whining.
That's right.
That it's not an option. So I think it was maybe some sports. I think it was maybe from my parents. My parents are both depression babies, and back 20s and 30s, and grew up with nothing. And it's like, when you grow up with nothing, you kind of it's kind of feels, I think, like a hassle, but I think you can really benefit from having nothing, because something is so much better, right?
Right.
So I when I sense fear, something inside me says keep going. If something is scary, something inside me says, oh, you should try that. If it's scaring you, you should try that. And it's always been part of me. I don't know when I developed it. So I think some of it was from childhood, some of it was from sports. Always been very competitive. Life has always been a meritocracy to me. It's never been an entitlement or a hardship. It's just been, you get what you earn, and I don't care who you are or where you're from. That's the case. So, and I've tried to instill that in my kids, because, as you well know, fear's everywhere, especially nowadays.
Right.
Anxiety and uncertainty, and you know and in terms of the tools, it's the ABCs, man. I've always exercised, because I've been an athlete my whole life. I can't do without exercise. I need oxygen, I need movement. And it's gone from full court basketball to yoga and walking, because as I've aged, I've had to make adjustments. And then I'm very conscious of what I put in my body. I eat mostly organic stuff. I cook most of the food that I eat. I don't go out to eat much, because most of that stuff's kind of not good for you. And then it's not just food, it's like air quality, and the personalities of the people that you hang around with, and what you watch on TV or the internet or the music you listen to. It's all the inputs: audio, visual, verbal, eating, drinking. It's all the inputs. Manage those inputs, and everything else is a little bit easier. And it's easier to be optimistic when you're fit and you've got a good night's sleep, and you're not putting a whole lot of poison in your body. So,
Absolutely.
and then the praying and the meditating is all the same. It's like, there's something going on here that's with me, man. I really don't have much to do with the rest of my day. It's going to be dictated to me. I just gotta, get in the game and understand what the rules are. But I think when you have the ability to say God, or higher power, whatever you want to I call it God. Can you take this from me? Can I surrender this stuff to you today, and let me get on with the day, and I'll come back and you'll take care of that for me for the time being. And sorry about the stupid shit I did, and I'll try not to do it again, kind of thing. It's kind of humbling. Those are my tools.
Absolutely. So, Mark, all of the stuff I just heard, man, it ties to personal development, professional development, in regards to just bettering yourselves, man. So, if you could touch on what you're currently doing now, and how is it with your business, all of your experiences and things like that. How is it that you are helping people based off all of the experiences that you've been through?
So I've developed a course, among other things. I have a 6-week course. It begins with a kind of a benchmarking exercise. It's a series of 16 modules. It's presented as an online course, but it's basically saying, okay, tell me everything about your life. Where are you? Where do you want to be? What do you like to do? Why do you want to do this stuff? Do you have a vision of your future? Do you have goals? And so we end up, after that, I don't know, it takes about 6 hours, and you can chunk it up into 1 hour time for 6 days, or you can do it all at once. Now we have a dashboard of your future, and it's a really cool, simple tool. And then I begin the process of saying, okay, well, let's move in the direction of, how do we get to these goals? What are the first steps, second steps, third steps? And so then it becomes a little bit more customizable. And I envision having, maybe 5 to 10 people join at the same time. So there's a community source to it as well. Then I get together with these individuals once a week for an hour individually, just like you and I are doing right now. And we start chipping away at that dashboard and making progress at that. And that's
I
personal.
love it, man.
Yeah, personal and professional development. And there's a series of workbooks and exercises that go, but the hour once a week, and then they leave me and come back next week. That's a week to do the work that we decided was part of the next step in that process. And then the community is 1 hour a week. Everybody gets on a Zoom call, and we benefit now from the experience of other people that are going through similar things. Because as you and I have been discovering just now on this call, there's a lot of the same stuff going on with all of us, and that community component I've found beneficial, being a participant in communities myself and facilitating communities there. Wow, the stories and the support and the empathy, it creates empathy, it creates optimism, it creates hope. And that whole process ends in 6 weeks. So it's 6 hours with me, 6 hours with the group, and at the end of it, you walk away with an action plan for what you want to do. And that's really quite a parallel to what I used to do when I would help someone find a job. It would be like, okay, why are you looking? What's going on? What's wrong? What do you want to do? Where do you want to be? What do you want to make? How's the wife feel about that? How's the family feel about that? Are you ready to move, or you need to stay in the same city? So it's the same conversation within a different framework. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean, man. The concept that I like applying to what you just mentioned is decision, direction, and destination. And if you could look at that triangle there, and just making sure that all those align, then it's a beautiful blend, man. And then I love the fact when you have the opportunity to create a community of like-minded individuals that's trying to get to the next level, and you're creating that atmosphere for them. I think that's another beautiful thing as well too. I wanted to ask you, where did you come up with the attitude of knowing that as a community or as a family, as we grow together, we're going to continuously learn together and continuously to evolve? Where did you get that mindset or that attitude, knowing that this would be beneficial to my program?
Yeah, probably having participated in a couple of different mastermind type situations where
Mhm.
groups of entrepreneurs like me, like-minded people, and I'm in one right now. It's called the Spiritual Operating System, and it's basically being spiritual and visualizing and praying around where you want to go and who you want to be. And I just saw, boy, all these other people. I'm not alone, right?
Mm.
Everyone's going through almost the same stuff, you
Yes.
know? And if you take a segment of the population and just say middle-aged men, they're all going through exactly the same stuff, you know? So, which is one of my decisions that I'm not making very well right now, because what I do, Michael, as you can well imagine, it's probably a challenge for you too, is helpful to everyone, right? But you can't market to everyone. You
Right.
have to pick a market. And the more I talk to people, the more I think to myself, maybe I should just start speaking to middle-aged men that are contemplating or in the middle of or just finished going through divorce,
Mm.
because that is a very specific experience. And I've
Mhm.
had one of the richest experiences one could have with regard to the with regard to the variables of that process. So I was actually toying with that over the weekend, and I think, because you start niched. Oh, that resonates with everyone. Anybody, any guy that's contemplating divorce or in the middle of divorce is going to go, "Oh my God, I got to talk to this guy," right? And so, because he's seen all of this, he knows what's coming, right? And so I may go that route, and then as that brings in enough revenue to expand with other resources and other markets, then I can start branching out into other markets. So I'm in the middle of that decision process as we speak.
I think you would have a good market. As you're telling me that, I went through two divorces. So so man, it was pretty challenging. The stories behind that is pretty crazy as well, and they were pretty costly,
Oh yeah.
and coming out of a divorce, there's so many things that are impacted. For myself, you know, I have two boys, right, and we're in a blended family.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had housing situations. Then we had bills and responsibilities and different types of things.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's all these different effects of our moms, our dads, our siblings, and all these different types of things that ties into the situation. Then we have our personal life, then our professional careers, Now we got to make decisions around those types of things. So
Hmm.
there's so much of an impact that is taken just from a guy that's simply divorced, man. You know,
Hmm.
so when you get to speaking to that type of audience, I definitely know that your program will resonate with them, man.
Yeah, thank you for that. It feels a little risky to leave all those other markets alone,
Mhm.
but it's a classic entrepreneurial challenge, which is, the riches are in the niches, as they say. The more detailed you can get in terms of the audience that you're going after, the more your messages are going to resonate. And
Right.
I can wrap all kinds of personal stories around it, empathetic stories, funny stories, crazy stories. So it would be the material's juicy.
So, Mark, being someone that's been in the business space, the personal development, the professional growth for our listeners, right? What are some key takeaways that you could share with them as we get ready to get out of here, man?
Yeah, my dad likes to use the phrase keep it simple. Life is simple. We have a tendency to complicate it. And I think that's, look for the simplicity in things, and don't expect things that need to be complicated. They don't, whether it's a business process or a teaching of some kind or a message. Simple is better. Simple is easier to take control of. The other thing from a business standpoint, and I was talking to my daughter about this, her company is thriving now, and mostly for one reason. She's done a lot of great work, but mostly because she has very specific, distinct systems and processes in place, and they're well documented so they can be delegated to other people as the company grows. And that
Big things.
scalability is critical, and you can't scale without systems and processes. They don't have to be complicated, but they have to be very specific. And when we process, like for instance, when we process an invoice, this is how it's done. This is what it looks like. This is the timing. This is where it goes. This is when it comes back. I mean, all of those things need to be broken down. And I think most entrepreneurs are challenged by that, because most of us, myself included, we get lost in the business day to day, and we don't step back and look at the business from a kind of a third party standpoint, because it feels like if I'm not grinding, I'm being lazy. And it's like, no, sometimes you got to just pull back and go, let me think about this for a sec. What's the bigger picture here? And you got to work on it instead of in it all the time. And then, personally, um, I think that all that stuff we talked about, don't expect life to be easy. And I think it was Jim Rohn, that relatively famous motivational speaker.
Hmm.
Don't look for things to be easier. Look for yourself to get better.
Yes,
And so I think the constant focus on, let me get better today, just a little bit better today than yesterday, and then tomorrow just a little bit better. Tiny steps. We try to take big steps too often, or I do, I should say. So those are a few kind of finishing thoughts.
absolutely. Thank you, man. I wanted to add something that you said when it comes to streamlining things within your business. So, being someone that served in the military, when I first got to my first duty station, um, I noticed that the job that I was getting into, there was SOPs, and I was replacing somebody.
Hmm.
And it lends towards what you're saying about what your daughter implemented in her business, where
Hmm.
SOPs are there. So this guy could be sick today, next week he could retire or something like that. The new guy that's showing up could look at this book, look at this manual, watch these videos or anything like that, and pick up
Hmm.
right where that person left off.
Yeah, no, the military is great at that, and I think that's, the other reason for that is, if you're going to sell the company, you have to get the best value. You got to sell a company that you can walk away from and it can still work. You
You're
know.
right. You're absolutely right,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
So, Mark, if anybody wanted to get in contact with you, do business with you, get you to come on their podcast or speak with you or anything like that, how can they get a hold of you, brother?
Yeah, I think the easiest thing is the my LinkedIn profile, which is just the standard LinkedIn URL /Aylward Mark, AYLWARDMARK. And then if you go to sevenpillarsglobal.com, the number seven pillars being plural, and then global.com, or markelward.com, they redirect to the same place. There's a place there in each of those places where you can hop on my calendar. I've made it very easy for people to find me. So if you go to either one of those places, we'll get connected. And usually what I do is, Michael, is I start off with a 30-minute free phone call where
Hmm.
we just kind of determine how can I help? Can I help? And what does that look like? And then some people engage my services from there on an hourly basis or pick up my program, and others decide they're not ready yet, and that's fine. People need to be ready to be helped for me to be able to help them.
Most definitely. You are where you are. What we'll do for you is when this episode airs, we'll share all of your contact information, your calendar link, and all those information will be in the description when we post this on Spotify, Apple, on YouTube, and on all of our different podcasting platforms.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, it also sounds, Michael, like there might be some opportunities for us to speak again. You know, we do complementary work. So if I can ever help with anything, certainly don't be shy about reaching out.
Sounds good, man. Thank you so much, Mark, for being a guest on the show, man. I truly appreciate it.
Thanks, Michael. My pleasure. I enjoyed it.
All right. Until next time, guys. Episodes drop weekly. We're out of here. Peace.
Can't complain at all. Couple dollars in my pocket, no income and go. Been working on my body, getting healthier. Thank God for clarity.